Thank you, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Zoom call, where we welcome the
Right Honourable
Joseph Wilson. Joseph, we love that you are from Auckland. We love that you are local and you have a heart for the people of this nation, and your heart very much is for the Lord Yeshua and bringing people from wherever they're at on a journey and bringing them to sonship. And we are really interested to knowing more about that journey and how the Lord has led you to this. So welcome. We thank you that your beautiful wife is allowing you to jump online tonight and that the kiddies are all looked after. So we honor her in this, and we honor everybody on this call. So thank you very much. The floor is yours, Joseph.
Wow. Just firstly, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Wanda. And thank you for giving me a space to just be me. Like, I really appreciate it. And, you know, when you first messaged me, I was like, whoa, like, really? Like, what do I have to say? You know, and I was like freaking out. And then the Lord was just like, yeah, this is me, you know. And so I just wanted to say thank you for all the kind things you're saying too. And I love you guys. And I've been tracking you a little bit, even though it was, you know, maybe I'll say a little bit about how I even met you guys, because that was kind of random also. And so I'll throw that all in the little story that I want to share, just of what's happened for me in the last 13 years. And I hope it will benefit someone, you know. That's my prayer, that it will benefit someone. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Go for it.
13 years ago, I went to a Pentecostal church for the first time in my life. And I had grown up around church, Anglican church in India, and I was there till I was 11 years old. I came to New Zealand, and, you know, new country, new culture, new everything. And I was still getting dragged to church, but when I was in my late teens, I stopped going because I didn't believe anything was real. And I had seen a lot of hypocrisy and all kinds of stuff in church like we do, you know. And so I started clubbing and partying and doing my thing. And one day this guy invited me to a church. It was a Pentecostal church, and I walked in. And it freaked me out because everyone was dancing and they looked happy. And the church that I was used to, nobody shows emotion. Everyone's looking down, even the happy songs, you know, you got to put that face on, the holy face. And so these guys were jumping, dancing, they had like lights and stuff. And I thought they were on drugs. I really thought the worship team were on drugs, because they were so filled with joy, and, you know, and they were actually drunk in the Holy Spirit. And so when I went through that experience, I was with a guy that kind of drove me there, and the pastor started laying hands on people, and they were falling out, you know, under the power of God. And I was like, this is fake. This is fake. And then the pastor said, if you think it's fake, just out to anyone, come up here. So I stood up to go and test this guy out, and my friend just starts freaking out. Like, it was like he was manifesting. I didn't know that at that time, but he was like, we gotta go. We gotta go. We gotta go. He grabs me, and he's my ride. So I left with him, you know. And then a few weeks later, I got invited again. I came late to church because they do long worship, you know, I don't care about worship. And then I left early because it was just, I didn't connect. But during this time, I started drinking more, partying more. I started to do dumber stuff. And it was like the devil was opening doors for me everywhere to get stuck. And somehow on June 8th, 2008, I still went to this church randomly. I was still drunk from the night before. I've been partying all night. And I was sitting in the back seat, and one of the girls doing worship falls on her knees, and she starts just singing in tongues to the Lord. And while she's doing that, I feel a heat go through my body, and I sobered up. And I freaked out because there's no one near me, no one touched me. I'm right at the back, and I'm like wondering why the heck I'm here. And the next minute, I'm sober. And that kind of began a journey for me with God in a way that I had never known before. And so I started to weep. He started to show me my whole life, my childhood, how he was with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're real, you know? And then still somewhere in me, there was this fight. Of, really? Are you sure? And so I said to him, if you are really real, I'm giving you 30 days. I'll come to all these church things. But at the end of 30 days, if I'm not sure, then I'm not coming back ever again, you know? And I made this deal with him. And I left, and in those 30 days, I went to all the meetings, I saw these miracles, I saw demons getting cast out. I don't know where I gave him everything. And that month became so special because every night I'd be lying in bed and I would feel a love. I would feel a love that I didn't know was love, but I would just be weeping in my pillow, trying to tell him why I don't deserve that. And I'm like, I can't, why would you? Were you there at this time? Were you there at this time when I was doing this? And it was like a 20, 30-day experience of just crying in my pillow. My pillow would be wet. And I would just feel this, this total acceptance, just as you are. And so that began a journey for me of just wanting to know him, you know. And so the church I went to was awesome in terms of revival. Like, we had real revival culture. We were seeing miracles left, right, and center, the power of God during worship, the presence. And I would take Hindu people into my church, and they would step in the threshold, freak out, and jump back up. It was such a powerful place when it comes to the manifest presence of God. And so we saw, you know, all kinds of supernatural stuff, jewels falling, feathers, you know, all this kind of, you know, the things that some people run after, and the things that I started to run after because that was the culture that I got introduced to God in, you know. And anyway, so I go through this whole journey, and about 4 or 5 years in, there's an affair that breaks out in the church. And when that affair happens, everything just shook. And everything kind of broke open, and you could see some things for what they were. And for the first time, I learned that relationship in places like this was not important. And it really broke me, because I heard many messages from the pulpit about discipleship. And so for me, when I heard discipleship, it was like, if you lead someone to the Lord, or you know someone's new to the Lord, do life with them. And so I used to be a door knocker. I would go house to house selling Sky TV. And I got a chance to lay hands on the sick and see them get healed. I got a chance to lead people to the Lord. It was amazing. It was like my Bible college for 3 or 4 years. But when I would lead people to the Lord, we would actually become friends. They would come to my house. I would go to their house. We would watch the rugby together. We actually became friends. So when all this chaos happened, I realized that everyone doesn't do that, especially in my church. That was not happening. And even from the main leadership to the next tier leadership, there was no connection. The connection was purely gift-based and position-based. There was no actual, like, oh, we do life together, you know? And so when all this chaos broke out, a lot of our church, like, well, a portion of it, and I was a youth pastor at the time, me and my wife, so a portion of the church were looking to me as to what's going on, because we were doing life together. And that caused even more trouble, because, you know, why aren't they looking to the next level leadership? Why are they looking to this Joseph guy? And so I started to get accused of a lot of stuff, and I tried to walk through and talk through a lot of things. And from there, I ended up serving the man who led me to the Lord. I served him in a church for 2 years. And in that church, I was leading worship. And the same pattern started happening of, I was building connection, I'm staying with people, I'm going to meet people at times, you know, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night if they're stuck somewhere, all that kind of stuff. And so the same thing happened where I was watching that there was no connection with this supposed head pastor or leader and the people. So I started to ask questions now, because I'm like, okay, we've been through this before. Let us not do this again. Why don't we build connection? Like, there's only 20-something of us. Why don't we all have more conversations where everybody speaks? And there was no room for that. And so this was about 4 years ago. I went through probably the hardest season of my life. And during that time, I decided to leave that place. Me and my wife felt God leading us away. But when I was leaving, again, there was a group of people saying, Joseph, we know you, you know us. We don't know him or his wife. And I'm like, come on, let's go to their house, sit with them, build relationship. And they would try, and there was no room for that. And so when I was leaving, they're like, we're leaving too. Where are you going? I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, starting something, I'm just leaving. But by default, I ended up with these broken people who have been through the craziest turmoil in an amazing church. And I was stuck here, and I was like, God, I know what's going to happen to my reputation if I start something. I don't want to do this. I know what they're already saying it. What are they going to say if I really do it? You know, and God really just started to deal with my heart of my need for a good reputation, my need for a good name, my need for people to approve. You know, he's like, if I approve, is that what matters? Or do you want all these other people to approve? Which one is it? And I started going through this journey, and it got really hard for me. There was one night specifically, I remember coming upstairs, you know, and I got into bed, my wife's asleep, and I'm trying not to cry, man. Like everything had just built, I was done, you know? And I'm lying there, I'm trying not to cry, and then my wife just wakes up, like supernaturally, turns over, puts her hand on my chest, and she's like, "What's wrong, honey?" Like out of nowhere. And she does that, and I just broke, and I'm just weeping. I can't even speak English at that time, you know, the buggly crying, like the beautiful, ugly crying. It was all on, like and I'm trying to say something, but there's too many tears there, like they've been held in for so long. And by the time I finished my crying, I was like, I'm done. Like, let's stop helping people. You, me, the kids, let's move to Dargaville. That's my wife's from Dargaville. That's the last place on earth I would ever go to. And that day, I was like, we go to Dargaville. I'm done. To the farm. Get away from people. I am not in relationship with anybody. You know, my wife just held me, and I started going through a season of like, man, like, you know, I put myself out for people, and this is happening. I'm like, God, what's the deal? And over the next few months, he started to bring certain people around who would rally around me. You know, I went to India on a holiday, and there was a Pentecostal pastor there. He kind of grabbed my hand. He was like, I need to meet you. I need to pray over you. And he really warred over me. You know, I went to a prayer meeting, and he just prayed over me for like 20, 30 minutes. And he spoke things that he shouldn't know. You know, so God revealed it to him, and he kind of helped me through that time. And during this season, I had a couple of encounters that I had no grid for. You know, I had no grid for going into the heavens. I had no grid for meeting and all this kind of stuff. And I had two specific encounters that blew my mind, and I didn't know if I can share that with anybody, if they will even think it's real or I'm lying. And anyway, I kept that with me. And as the time went on, I saw a picture of Cheryl Davies on Facebook. Now, I don't know how she became my friend on Facebook. You know, on Facebook, you don't know how these things happen. But when I saw her photo, the Lord's like, you need to go meet her. And I'm like, who is she? Who's this lady? You know, so I check her profile, and I'm like, she's in Phoenix, like Arizona. I'm like, who's going to meet her? And then her post is like, oh, I'm in New Zealand. I'm in Auckland. And I'm like, no way. So I message her, and I know, like, what middle-aged lady is going to just meet some random guy in a random place in Auckland? Like, but she replied, and she was like, yes, let's meet. And so I went and met her, and I kind of told her a bit of my story. And I shared my encounters with her, and she totally got it. And I was like, oh, she gets it. I'm not mad. I'm not crazy. This is real, you know? And that kind of began a journey with Cheryl. And so Cheryl coming here with Etienne in the conference, and that's how I connected with you guys. And it's been awesome. Just a bunny trail. It was awesome that night even that I got to stay at your place. So thank you so much for looking after me. And even bringing your essential oils for my breathing, and you know, you would take that one to such a moment, and that was awesome. So thank you. And so I got to even meet Etienne there, and God like birthed a connection with him in that time at your place, which was awesome. And so after that began, God really started to, I guess, not even after that began, maybe just a bit before that, really started to speak to me about relationship, the importance of connection, and how that is the beginning of everything. You know, God created man for connection, you know, and then he made a woman for the male, for connection. God really values connection. The Trinity are in constant connection and union. And we get invited into this divine union. And I feel like that's why the devil has really gone against relationships. You know, I started to look at all these leaders, 15, 20, 30, 40 years in the ministry, and I'm like, who have you walked with for 40 years? And very rarely do you find people like that. Like when I saw Bill Johnson and Chris Vallotton, and I'm like, okay, this man promised to serve this guy all these years, and they're still together. Like that spoke a lot to me. You know, that you can't make it through 10, 20, 30 years of relationship without issues, without serious issues, you know, without the option of having fights, without the option of getting offended. You can't make it there. And so I started to see that there was a big hole in how we do Christianity. You know, at that time I was still kind of thinking Christianity. And this began a journey of the kingdom for me. And one of the things the Lord said to me was, I'm giving you these people, and in 3 years from now, they should not be in the same place. Help them find their runway and help them fly. And that became the goal in my heart for our little house group or house church. And so we had about 15 to 20 people, and we are coming into the third year in October. and nobody is in the same place. And so it's been awesome to watch their shift. Nobody's left the Lord. Nobody's broken. They've come through the brokenness into healing. And that's where I'm really excited for our group, because I believe something's about to happen in October, November. And so during this time, the importance of fathering, the importance of mothering, the importance of understanding maturity, understanding sonship and how it's not a school-based performance system, understanding that the Father is completely interested in maturing us, and these kind of things became really, really important for me. And so, you know, just kind of my story that I just wanted to lay out before I go deeper in this thing. And another thing that was pretty big that's happened for me this season is before the lockdown. So I've run a fitness business for about 7 years, and I was looking after a corporate gym. And in February, the Lord said to me, these guys are not going to help you open up anymore. So your time here is done. And that was like a main income for me, you know, this gym. And so I gave him my resignation, if you want to call it that, just to let them know that I'm not going to run their gym with my team anymore. And so we had 4 weeks. On the last week, COVID hits, lockdown hits, and everything is shut. And now I'm like, okay, so the gym's gone, the country's shut. What are you about to do now? You know? And there are times where I find it really hard to zone into the Lord. I don't know if you're like me, but there are times where I can't just sit and zone in with the Lord. And so I began going on walks. And when I go on these walks, I found that the first 20 minutes, all the clutter in my head would just be blah, 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 blah. And then somewhere in the 20th to 30th minute, it would all die out. And the next 20 to 30 minutes, I would hear him so clearly. So I started to go on these walks. You know, instead of trying to condemn myself, sitting on a couch feeling bad, I can't hear him, I would go on these walks. And it was really interesting feeling the atmosphere in my region, feeling the oppression in that first lockdown. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of suppression in the air. Walking on the street, people didn't even want to look you eye to eye. And they would cross the road, or, you know, make sure they have so much distance from you. And it really started to, I could feel pain there. And I also felt like God didn't like that, you know, the separation from connection, which is his heart. Anyway, during that walk, he spoke to me about purpose and how every person has an ultimate purpose. They were born with something that only they can do. And even if somebody could do it, they couldn't do it like them. And he started to show me my whole life that I was a purpose mobilizer. He started speaking to me about the body needs to be mobilized. They need to move. Too many are waiting for this perfection they don't even understand. And then he gave me this idea of a purpose challenge. And so I launched that challenge in April, and it just went crazy. Our group went crazy after that. We've had about 800 or 900 people register for that challenge. Amazing things started happening in the first week. Again, I'm just laying a little platform for you, right? So in the first week, I did a session on living in truth, tell the truth. Because in Christianity, man, I've seen it so much. We don't tell the truth. And we use amazing scriptures and beautiful Christianese to cover it up. So we won't say it's a lie, we just won't tell the truth. And I did the session on tell the truth. And that was when I started to see how much power there is in your assignment, because testimonies started coming in of people getting delivered of demons. Just listening to the session, like in the UK, we had this one lady, she messaged me and she's like, this is happening in my body. And she had this crazy deliverance by herself in her bedroom. You know, like God just started to go, I can do this, Joseph. You know, I can do this. If people say yes, I will do it. I will build my church. I will expand. I just want people to say yes. And so I started to see a whole new realm of walking with the Father, you know. And so before I go into anything else, I do want to tell you that you have a purpose. When he formed you in your mother's womb, it was very intentional. Everything about you was intentional. Some of the things that people have told you or people might have pushed you away for are also intentional. And I want to give you an example. For me, I get very passionate. I get very loud. I get very expressive. Maybe it's the Indian in me. I don't know, you know. And so I get along with South Africans very well, you know, and Middle Easterns. Like, it's like we're there. You know, but during my walk, I'd be around some people who didn't like the tone, or they would misunderstand it, and I started to really hate that I was like that. And I went through 2 or 3 years of being like, God, why did you make me like this? Like, I get excited. I'm not angry. I'm not mad. I'm just connecting, but they don't see it like that. And then they reject me. And I'm like, God, why did you make me like that? Till I started to see that everything has divine purpose. And so I'm saying this to you because, especially in what we are in right now and what's happening and what's about to happen in the next 3 to 5 years, it is really important you understand that you're not here by accident. And there is something that you are called to release, to do on here that nobody else can do like you. And I just want to encourage you to go on that journey to explore that. And the 2 words I'd like to leave you with when it comes to your purpose is explore and engage. You know, the subject of purpose has been very mystified and abused and thrown around. And so I just want to tell you a few little things, like your purpose is inside you. It is not something you're going to find out there. It's not something you need to seek out there. It's actually already within you. A lot of you have been operating in some line, some strand of your purpose since you were a child. It comes so naturally to some of you that you don't think it's valuable. That's how much your purpose is in you. You know, and so I use the words explore and engage because there are so many people that think they need 2 angels coming through the wall, some music, and a scroll pop in, and they need to be able to read it. They need that before they think it's the Lord. And so they're waiting. And I've met people 50, 60, 70, still waiting. Well, what are you waiting on? Jesus at 12 already knew it. At 12, he's in the temple having conversations, engaging his purpose, exploring his purpose. And so it's within you, but we have this real fear of getting it wrong. And this is why I teach a lot of our clients and students, you need to learn to explore. Explore, man. Like, start to look around. Go deep on some things. And then if it's not the thing, you will find the thing. You know, and I say this thing like, man, God will redirect anybody, but he won't make you move. He can't force you to move, but he will redirect you. And you see in the Bible, you see with Saul, Saul is going about what he assumes is his purpose. He is killing all these Christians unto God. He's not anti-God. He is for God. And he said, this is my purpose. These Christians, heretics, kill him. Right? And so here's a man on fire for what he believes is his purpose. And God's just like, boop, redirect. And now he becomes the apostle. They shift so much. And so exploring is very, very important. And so when you start exploring, which might be, hey, maybe there's a podcast. Maybe I do poetry. Maybe I paint. Maybe I sketch. Maybe I'm in politics. Whatever it is, you start to explore the expression of this. Then comes the engagement. And so I run a course called Catalyst, and I watch people. They come in, they deal with some of their past, and then they get to the halfway mark, and now it's time to explore, but also engage. And that's when all the real, what you really believe about God shows up. See, Jesus grabs these disciples, and he's like, let's go. He's not like, let's do training, seminary, 3-4 years. No, he's like, let's go. As we go, we will grow. But if there is no go, there is no grow. And you can't see you clearly unless you go. So he grabs these guys and he's like, yeah, Peter, I know you got issues. Yeah, Judas, I know you got issues, but we'll see if we'll deal with them on the road. Right? And Jesus is not looking for the perfect people. He took the failed rabbis. He took the barely any good fishermen because they couldn't even catch fish. And he's like, I choose you. Come. And he starts to turn them and show them who they really are in this journey. And so many believers are scared to go on the journey because they don't want to get it wrong. And so I just want to tell you, explore and engage. You are going to get it wrong. Right? I'm going to give you some bad news. Most of the things that you did for the first time in your life, you failed. When you came out of your mom's womb, eating, drinking was a challenge for some of you, really bad, right? First time you tried to walk, you failed. First time you tried to talk, you failed, right? There were times where you pooed and you peed at the wrong time in the wrong place. But you're here, you made it, and now you are toilet trained. And for some reason, we think with the Lord, we won't go through a process. There is always a maturing process. And so I want to encourage you to dive in, because you have the Lord, you can be so fearless. Because in all your mistakes, he turns them around. Even the dumbest thing that you can do, he can turn into gold, because that's who he is. That's who he is. And so I want to encourage you with that, to remember this as you go about the next few months, that you might look around and be like, oh my gosh, media, politics, Jacinda's doing this, Trump's doing that, what's going to happen, martial law? As you go about this and these things are screaming at you, that you would be able to shut that down and dive into, Papa, you put me here for a reason. What is it? Because your purpose cannot be touched by anything or anyone. As long as you are alive and you have breath in your lungs, your purpose is alive. And no one can steal it. Your leadership might have tried to shut you down. People might have tried to shut you down. Your parents might have tried to kill you. I don't know your story. But nobody can shut your purpose down. And what happens when you come in alignment with that purpose is everything around you starts to sync up. Wanda, is it okay that I talk about purpose a little bit more? Is it okay? Because I think this is the subject of the season, you know, and it's important that you get what I'm saying. So once you start to lock in a purpose, all the decision making becomes easy, because if it's not walking you towards your purpose, you don't want it. All your relationships become easy, because if these relationships don't fit in the purpose that God has for you, you don't want them. When you start locking into purpose, it becomes easy for you to go through everyday life and enjoy it, because God's not going to give you a purpose that you are absolutely useless at, right? He gives you one that you can grow at because it's within you, but in seed form. So this is the next thing I just want to tell you is your purpose within you starts as a seed. Everything begins as a seed. When God made creation, He creates seed that turn into trees that have fruit, and the fruit have seeds, and those seeds make trees again. And so in all of us is purpose as a seed, and when you start to nurture it, water it, it starts to grow, and it will grow as fast as you go. And so one of my favorite men on the earth, his name is Dan McCullum, he says this: you are currently moving at the speed of your obedience. You are currently moving at the speed of your obedience. And so Jesus, at 12, that seed has already started to sprout and have leaves, and it's already started to show signs. And so a lot of people will neglect their purpose because they want the full tree. They want the full tree. And so if it's, say, YouTube, then they need 1 million followers in a week if it's the Lord, you know. If it's ministry, then they need the platform that's going to do it, or whatever. And everyone's looking for the tree. And the reality is, you won't ever get a tree from the Lord. It is always seed. It is always seed, because you become what it takes when the tree is manifested. One of the sessions I do with people is called Becoming the Person Your Dream Needs. It's in the journey that you become what is needed when you're looking at that tree. You know, you look at Joseph's life, he goes through a whole bunch of craziness, but if he never went through that, there is no knowledge of how to run an administration. There is no knowledge of how to run a nation. You know, and he learned that in a prison system. You know, and so all of your life now, right? So on one side, you got your talents and your gifts that God put inside you, innate, before you were formed in your mother's womb. He put these inside you. And then on the other side now, you have life's training. And your life's training mixed with your gifts and your talents will help you identify this. So obviously this is a massive subject. I'm just, you know, kind of going through some important parts of it. And so I just want to tell you the next little thing over here with purpose is I use this acronym, purpose equals I am. I am, because your purpose is who you are. It's not what you do. And so what you do can change, but who you are doesn't, right? And this is another mistake that people have between purpose and plans. A lot of times people think purpose is plans, right? And so if I look at me wanting to drive to Auckland Airport, I'm on the North Shore. It's about 45 minutes away, right? The purpose can be that I get to the airport, but the plan, there could be 1,000 different roads that I could take in between to get to the same purpose. And a lot of times we get stuck on the plan instead of understanding purpose. When you become a purpose person, a purpose-minded person, you start to see the world differently. Everything changes. Your relationships, your ability to love people through stuff changes, because now you are purpose-orientated, not plan-orientated. You don't get thrown away by days where the plan didn't work, because the purpose is still alive. And so it's really, really powerful when you start to lock into this. And so purpose equals I am, the acronym is identity, assignment, and maturity. And so in your purpose here, your identity is that of a son. Jesus came as a son. He had an assignment of a savior. You have an assignment. There is an assignment. And then the M is for maturity. he had to grow in wisdom, in stature, in favor. He grew, maturity. And so your purpose is now a culmination of these three things: your identity, your assignment, and your maturity. And what's happened now, even through sonship, a lot of people have just camped. They've camped in the identity part. They've just camped in the, well, I'm a son. But what does that mean? There is always an assignment. And there is an assignment in your level of maturity. And this is what I'm trying to help people understand, that I don't need to chase Bill Johnson's assignment when my maturity is not at that place. I don't need to chase Etienne's assignment when my maturity is not at that place. I can just do the assignment that's in front of me. You know, and so I love that Jesus is so big on family. He's so big on connecting with God as a father first. And also, the book of 1 John is an amazing book when it starts talking about the intergenerational connection. And so I just want to throw that at you, the purpose thing, because you don't even know who's waiting on your purpose, guys. There is somebody waiting on you, and they don't even know they're waiting on you, and you don't know they're waiting on you, right? But as you step into it, suddenly it starts to morph. And in that journey, some people will try and remind you, but aren't you that Alan? You're that Alan, you know? And then God's like showing the world Alan in a different way, and there'll be a whole bunch that are like, but you're that Alan. Just like they said, you're that Jesus, right? But the assignment still starts to open up. And so I just want to encourage you there that it is time for you to engage that assignment. Accept the identity, but then engage the assignment. And yeah, and that's part of the journey. So I hope that's okay that I went into that. I think as a body, it is really, really important that we understand that as a thumb, I'm going to do something else as opposed to the eye. And if the eye just wants to keep training me to be like the eye, I always feel like I'm not good enough because I can't see, right? And that's what's happened. We've had conferences of eyes, conferences of ears, and the thumbs and the fingers are all stuck at home. Like, what am I going to do? You know, one of the big things was a guy named Lance Wallnow. I don't know if you guys know Lance Wallnow.
Yeah.
Lance shares the statistic that maybe 3% of people are going to have a ministerial call within the church building. So 97% of people, right, aren't even going to have that kind of call, but that's all we have trained people to do. How to do this, how to do that in the walls, in the four walls, you know? And that shift is coming right now, especially in New Zealand. I believe in the spirit and under the ground, there has already been a shift. There has already been like a tectonic shift, and it's now going to start to manifest up and down the North Island. Probably October, November, we're going to start to see a lot of little hubs, little groups of fire groups just starting to show up in different places. And they will be, like 1 John 2:27, they'll just be taught of the Lord. Like one night you're a drug addict, gang member, killing people. The next morning you're leading a group of people into amazing things in this nation. And so when I look at all of you, I just want to just say there is something that you got to do that no one else can do. And my what's the word? My not necessarily request, but my prayer is that you will seek that out, you know, that you will go into that and do it the best you can, you know, give yourself to that. And so one day asked me to speak a little bit about the healed heart and sonship, stepping into sonship. And so I want to do that here. So when I got saved, before I got saved, my heart was totally shut down, right? For me, relationships meant nothing. I had, you know, my mom, my dad, 2 sisters, and that was just logistics to me. You know, it was just logistics. I just lived in a house. Yeah, we're family, but what does that even mean? You know, and for my family to migrate from India to come here, I was 11 years old. My mom and dad were really struggling in different ways of coming to terms with this nation. My mom was a very, certified psychologist. Like, she'd done a lot of great work in India, but when she came here, they were like, you're too overqualified to get a job. And that didn't even make sense. And it spiraled my mom into, I wouldn't say depression, but a lot of doubt and worry. And so emotionally, in my house, it felt like there was no one there. And I started to just go on my own journey, right? So I would, after school, I'd go hang out with friends, come home really late. You know, sometimes they'd go looking for me. I didn't even care. And as I grew up, you know, girls wanting relationships with any girl was purely physical, was purely touch, sex, that's about it, drinking. There was no, I didn't know how to connect emotionally. And I had massive rejection. And I don't know where this rejection got into me, but it was very, it was very aggressive in the sense, or maybe passive, I don't know how you'd say it, but I would reject people before they could reject me. So if I could sense in any form that you are about to even pull back from me like this much, I'm just like, get out of here, you know? And it would manifest in so many of my relationships, especially with girlfriends at that time, and when I was drunk. And I had some times where, you know, it would just show up and I had no idea of what the heck that was. So when I encountered God and I started to feel this complete acceptance, I changed. Like, I freaked people out, changed. You know, like, so my wife now, Kirsten, we met in uni in 2006. So she met me in the height of my stupidity. Like, she met me at my worst. And she would pray that I would get to know God, which was really weird. And at that time, I did a network marketing company. I was part of USANA Health Sciences. I don't know if you've heard of it. But it's multivitamins, right? And I went all in. I became a silver director. And so it was almost like I was an evangelist for that business. If you know MLM, you know what I'm talking about. And she was just getting annoyed. And that was the prayer. That's how it began. She was like, God, this guy just keeps speaking about this business. I pray he will get on fire and speak about you like that. All right? And so she had no idea what was about to happen. So when this experience happened, I changed so much. All my friends, like, I just shut down. I was like, that world sucks. I knew it sucked the whole time, but now I don't have to be there. I'm out, you know? And so I would message her with like, Jesus, oh my God, he's so real. And she started freaking out because, you know, she would go to Life Church and she heard about the Holy Spirit, but, you know, the connection was not like this. So now I went from one extreme to the other extreme. I'm freaking her out in a different way. And now she doesn't know how to deal because I'm all Jesus, like Jesus, 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 Jesus. And then I'm like, oh, this guy got healed. Oh, bro, this guy, a demon came out. She's like, what? You know, like, is this real? Like, what the heck? And so then a journey began for her of getting to know God. And during this time, the healing of my heart, I had no language for it, but it was just pure acceptance. Just pure acceptance. That is the only way that you can have a healed heart, is just receiving the love of God. There is no other way. And yeah, we come up with, you know, sozos and different methods of how to help facilitate and frame it. But the bottom line is nothing happens outside of knowing how to receive His love. Everything began there, you know. And like I was sharing with some of our group, like, we're called to love each other, but we can only love each other as much as we love ourselves. I can only love you as much as I love me. I can only love me, right, if I firstly know what love is, right? And I can only love me as I love Him. But I can't even love Him if I don't know that He loves me. And it all begins with His love for us. And so during that time, we would go on these weekends at our church called the Encounter Weekends. And they were really powerful. You'd spend Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, different sessions on the heart of the Father. And then there would be a session on the cross. And I remember my first encounter with the cross. And I watched Passion of the Christ like I'd never seen it before. And they show you a small clip of the crucifixion. And this anger in me of like, how dare they touch my Jesus? Like, you know, and I was going through this crazy journey of what was in my heart and things that I didn't understand. And, you know, so I guess I'm just wanting to share with you in a non-teacher way, right? Just sharing my story of some of the things I had to walk through in my heart. And so now I know the love of God, right? But somewhere I still think I'm superior because the church I go to sees amazing miracles. Like, it's not a dead church, you know? And all these kind of things are still in there, and nobody has a problem with it in my church. And so my first 4 or 5 years, there was so much elitism that was running in there that was not clear. Like, it wasn't explicit. Like, it wasn't something I would say, but it was fully rife in there. Like, if I was around a Baptist, I'm like, you're awesome, you read the word, that's great, but you don't, right? And there was all this stuff in my heart, and it felt like the closer I was getting to who God is and who He is in me, the more I saw things in me that I'm like, what? I don't want to see that. You know, and the more that these things that 5 years ago I'd been like, that's not much. Now we're like, oh my gosh, I have that? Like I think like that? Like, 5 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, we're all like that. Like, it's not even a big deal. And the closer I was getting to this perfection, to this light, to this unadulterated, unfiltered, ruthless, 100% love, the more my heart just started to get exposed. And that is one of the most beautiful places that we could ever be in. And I just want to say that to you because people are scared to go there. Today, I am excited to find junk in me because God is the only one who takes my junk and gives me gold. Like he will take my crappy junk and replace it with something amazing. You know, and so I started to go through different things. Like, so I'm discipling these guys. I remember this one day, one of the guys I'm walking with, you know, and I'm like, discipleship, like, I'm the leader. Like, all these things that I'm learning early on when I'm still a baby, maturing in these things. Because the church I was in was very gifted. It was very power-orientated, but it did not understand authority. It did not understand exousia. You know, we got the dunamis, but we don't have the exousia. And so you become very dangerous when you understand power, but you don't understand maturity, you don't understand authority, you don't understand subjection. You become dangerous because you start to shoot your gun wherever, you know, and you're a prophet on Saturday night, and you're in witchcraft on Tuesday morning. That's how it happens when you don't understand this. And so I'm going through this journey, and this guy I'm leading sees this miracle, and he's testifying, and in my heart, I'm like, what? He just saw that miracle. I haven't even seen that miracle, but I'm supposed to be leading him. Well, what? God, what does this mean? Do I now get discipled by him? And my heart now starts to manifest all these insecurities and all these parts that were not healed because I wanted to get my affirmation for my performance. You know, and so I remember going through a 3-week process with the Lord towards this guy because God would keep asking me, what if you never see the miracles he's going to see, Joseph? Will you still love him? Will you still champion him? Will you still be there no matter what? And when he first started asking me that question, my answer was a loud, no way, no chance. You know, from my mouth, I could say, yes, Lord, whatever you say, Lord. But my heart is like, nah, this cannot happen. And so these kind of things, I believe, are so important that we almost gloss over. And I believe these are so important to the Lord because when you come to God, suddenly every aspect of your life is actually only about you and him. You know, it's crazy that Joseph in the Bible, when Potiphar's wife is wanting to sleep with him and is wanting to do stuff with him, and he says, you know, no, his actual answer is, how can I sin against the law? Like, he's so conscious of this union. He's like, how can I sin against the law? And then later you see in David's story, David now, you know, sleep with Bathsheba, kill her husband. I mean, that's crazy. He does all this stuff, hurts all these people. And finally, when he gets confronted, his answer is, my God, against you and only you have I sinned. And it's such a consciousness of this union that nothing else matters, because if I take care of this, all of this is easy. But if I'm running after all of this, it's too hard, right? And so this union, understanding that everything you go through, like when that person didn't serve you properly at Starbucks, and you got triggered, you know, or when someone didn't come and fill your gas, or when someone you've been helping for 2 years has just left you, like not even a message, just later, I don't want nothing. All of these things now, I started to realize the beauty of triggers. Triggers, we all have triggers, and I had massive triggers. I had triggers especially to do with my family, you know, and that's one of the things that happens is we become so good with other people because we can hide these triggers, but when mom says something, it's all on. You know, like pastor, anyone can say anything, but if your mom or your sister or that one person, you know, if they just even say one thing that's not right, you lose it at them. And I started to see all these triggers. And I believe that God, he exposes these triggers because he wants to take us to a realm. There is a realm where you can live from and love from, where you are unhurtable, unoffendable. You're untouchable in the earthly sense of things. And it is a supernatural place. It is a place you get to only by his grace. It is a place you get to that there is no staircase to it. There is no 5 steps to it. There is no formula to it. It's only his grace. And here is our biggest challenge, is that grace is only received. It's just received. You know, and I started to go on a journey of what does it mean to be the beloved of God, to be loved. How do you be loved? How can one be loved? You know, and in the last 5 years, I've had 3 children now. I have a 5-year-old, a 2.5-year-old, and a 7-month-old, all girls. beautiful babies. And God really has used my kids to show me how he sees me. You know, you have a child, this child was born, it's just crying, hasn't done anything. It's just lying there, oozing with all these liquids. Just, you know, and at first sight, you look at this baby and you're just like, oh, why? I love you. It's like, you've done nothing for me, and you probably can't do anything for me for a few years, but I love you. And you know, even unbelievers in the moment of birthing, they are stunned in that moment because that's their experience of true love. When they see their own child and now you feel something, and this kid can't do anything to earn it. And God looking at us the same way of Joseph. You're mine. I love you. You know, and I'm like, look at my gooey liquids on me, and I can't even speak. And he's just like, and it's just, it blew my mind, right? At the power of this unconditional acceptance. And so one of our challenges that I'm seeing in the body of Christ, like, we happily receive salvation. You know, everyone on here, you would tell me you're born again, you're going to heaven. If I asked you, well, how do you know? Show me some proof. You can't show me proof. You just do it by faith. You just believe you're saved. But that same book has thousands of other things that it says it's yours. And for some reason, we are like, well, what must I do to get it? How many times must I say the prayer to receive it? Do I need to memorize Psalm 91 before I'm really saved from coronavirus? You know, and we're like, what? Give me something to do to earn it. And that is why I feel like this is why a lot of us have not stepped into the fullness, because somewhere we say, okay, God, that's great. Now let me earn it. Let me earn it. Let me earn it. Let me earn it. You know? And I started to see that there is a realm where you can have relationship with everybody, where you can walk with John, who wants to put his head on your chest at the dinner table, and you can walk with Peter, who will pull out his knife to save you and just chop anyone to bits, and you can walk with Judas, who's just waiting for an opportunity to steal from your back pocket, and you can walk with all of them the same. So much so that Judas would never even know that you knew the whole time. I started to see there's a realm that you can have relationship with where it's completely one way. 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind. Everything that love is only goes one way. It never seeks anything to come back to it. Love does not seek its own. And I started to see there's a realm where you could just love everyone. And this is why Jesus is like, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who use you. Love them all, because you're in another realm. You're in another realm. Step into this other realm. And so I started to see the reality, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the kingdom is beautiful. But the churchianity, the traditions of man, the ways of man, is a constant battle, you know? And the problem here is because we have a feeling in us, a strand in us that wants to earn, that wants to deserve. Why do we want to earn something? Because we want to deserve it. And when you have a deserving attitude, every relationship that you will ever have, you will put deserving on it. And if people do what you deem to deserve your love, you will give it to them. But if they don't do what you deem, you won't love them. And so now you look at a Pentecostal church, people come in, they're shaking, ooh, wow, falling on the ground. They're like, yeah, like, you're like me, I love you. And then the Baptist comes and we don't do that. Is that even in the Bible? Show me where it's in the Bible. And now you're like, wow, you know? And then these denominations are a manifestation of a heart that wants to earn, that wants to deserve. And that's the first thing that God dealt with when you got saved. Because he's like, we're going to begin this journey with you not deserving jack. Are you okay with that? Come on then. You know, but for somewhere along the line, we want to tell him that now let me deserve it. Right? If I ask any person, any believer, what's the greatest miracle? Salvation. Okay, what did you do to get it? Nothing. Well, why are you trying so hard to do all these other things? For the lower things. You know, and so this realm started to open up to me, and I made it my journey, my desire to go into that place of being able to have relationship with anyone and everyone. And I looked at Jesus' life, and he's walking with the drunkards and the prostitutes, and he's walking around darkness, but he's still shining his light. And the darkness has no room in him, no way to get upon him, yet he is standing in the midst of all of the darkness. And I started to see that he was able to love everybody. He was able to be himself with everybody. even the ones that couldn't love him back, or didn't know how to love him back, or didn't want to love him back. And so I guess I'm saying all of this just to tell you that the healed heart begins and ends with your ability to just receive. To just receive. My 2.5-year-old, she will get on my table, she will break something, break a cup. Very next minute, she wants a cookie. She just broke something in my house and she's happy to take a cookie. But most of us, if we did something that we think is wrong, we can't ask for anything for 24 hours at least. Well, some of us, 3 days. Some of us, we need 5 days and a Bethel soaking session. We create all kinds of stuff to come back to the rightful place. But my 2.5-year-old, nothing's even wrong, Papa. I just broke that thing. But what does that thing have to do with you and me? And she just looked at me with this innocence of like, let's keep moving on. Life is beautiful. Right? And I start to learn from my kids how I can be with my Father. That he's not freaking out that a cup broke or that I did something wrong. He's just keep going. And then it blows my mind that Jesus is like, hey, come as a child. Come as a child. You know, and he's like, not childish, childlike. Come as a child. This kid. You know, and man, there's so much I want to say, but there's just this beauty if you were going to accept what I'm saying to you, that you are a child of God and you are maturing with him. It just becomes the most amazing journey. Okay, how much time do I have? Guys, David, how much time?
As long as you want. So probably another half an hour, and then we may have some questions after that, and wherever the Lord leads you, Joseph. So we're all being blessed. I can just see it. It's amazing. Carry on.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And so when you start to understand that the Father, right? So firstly, why is it important that we elect him as Father first? Right? That was what Jesus said. The disciples are like, hey, when you pray, miracles happen. Right? Teach us how to pray. And then Jesus is like, start with our Father. Not our King, not our Lord, not God of the universe. Start with our Father. Because when you start with your Father, you are always going to end up well. Begin there, you know? And so family is so important to God, so important to Holy Spirit, so important to Jesus. But as church family, we have not understood that one bit. So let's look at family for a second. In every family, there will be a parent, there's a mother and a father, their children of different ages. And so in every family, right, as a family is growing, you have a baby. This baby cannot fend for itself. This baby is doing things that is causing a mess, causing a ruckus, causing a noise. Right? Then you might have a toddler. The toddler has a little bit of understanding. Now they've got some grip. They like to grab things. They like to climb things. The toddler brings a different kind of dynamic. Then you got some teenagers. Right? Teenagers now supposedly should be a bit smarter. Yet they do things that are not very smart. But now they can do things that have longer lasting damage. Right? When you're a child, you break a cup, you buy another cup. When you're a toddler, you break a TV, you buy another TV. When you're a child, when you're a teenager, you can do some things that may not get reversed, right? And now the danger level starting to grow as you mature. But for some reason, in church family, we don't consider this. We never consider that when somebody gets saved, they're a baby, that they need to be nurtured. They don't know how to feed themselves. They need someone to feed them. Like, so my wife, we had a baby. My wife was a full-on sleeper. She deep sleep. I hit the pillow, gone, right? When we just got married in our early days, you know, we'd be lying in bed and I'm talking. Because I'm like, oh, husband and wife, pillow talk. I heard about this. Let's do it, you know. And I'm talking. I turn over. My wife's gone. And so the next day, I'm like, well, how fast does she go? So I'm facing her while we're talking. Boom, boom. And I realized, you are gifted. Right? So then we have a baby. And now my wife is waking up at every whimper. And she's waking up every 2 hours to feed the baby. And suddenly her whole being has changed because of her love for this thing. Right? And so when people get saved, we don't ever think like, man, there's a baby. They don't know how to feed themselves. They probably will keep crying. They will cry a lot. Like everyone that's had babies, you know what I'm saying? You don't know what sleep is for a long time. Right? And so their baby needs a certain type of attention. Right? Just like a toddler needs a different type of attention. A toddler needs some rules, some guidelines, but also some freedom. Otherwise, that toddler will never mature into using his or her abilities. Right? And so what's happened in church is someone gets saved and we take them from baby to mature, married, childbearing adults. You know, and it's like, as soon as someone gets saved, because we do not make it really clear and open that we're a family all maturing and growing together, there is an unexpected expectation here, unexplained expectation where I got saved and then I start hearing these stories that David Hogan will go into his bedroom and pray for 8 hours and he won't eat food for 3 days. I'm like, I should be doing that if I really love the Lord, right? Or Heidi Baker just goes in for these, you know, long prayer sessions. Well, I need to do that. And I would go into my room, close the door, and I couldn't even handle half an hour, 1 hour, you know, and then it's like, man, like I'm so far behind, and all these kind of thought patterns start coming in purely because we don't explain the dynamics of a family. There is no expectation on a baby, none, except the only expectation is you're going to wake me up and I'm going to need to feed you, right? And so we don't talk about these kind of things, and I have seen firsthand the damage that this causes when somebody is a baby or a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old in the Lord, and the expectation of a 20-year-old is put on them. You know, well, you're coming to the meetings, I want to do this meeting, I want to do that meeting. Well, you're not coming, well, do you really love the Lord? Like, and all this kind of stuff that creates the cycle, this perpetuated cycle of I'm never enough, I'm never enough, I'm never enough, will I ever be enough? You know, and I believe that that's one of the biggest problems and the biggest reasons we have not seen more mature believers, because maturity is not even talked about. Maturity is not even embraced. Maturity is not even celebrated. You know, we celebrate a baby. I mean, today we put our 7-month-old in a jolly jumper. You guys know what a jolly jumper is? They bounce on the springs. And I'm watching her, like, figure it out, learn how to jump. And I am celebrating her the same way I'd celebrate my 5-year-old at gymnastics. There is no difference, you know? And we have not created cultures like that will just celebrate the new person for whatever. And so maturity has largely been ignored. It's been ignored by the body. There has been this unsaid expectation that you go from baby to married, childbearing adult. Go make disciples. Now, you got the Lord. Now. And we've not allowed people to mature into their fullness. And so that's why you can meet people 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the Lord, and they haven't borne any fruit. Because for this whole time, they've been trying to pretend to be an age that they never even understood. You know, as you grow in the natural, your brain development changes, the chemistry changes, your ability to make decisions change, your understanding of the world changes, everything matures. It's the same in the spirit. And you know, one of the reasons we even have to talk about the healed heart is because we have not understood what I'm saying. Because when you understand maturity, you're very conscious about people's hearts. You become very conscious about what you're saying and how it might be taken, how much you might damage somebody. You know, you become very conscious of the family. One of my friends, W. Alexander, he says this, he says, the kingdom is familial in nature. It's a family first. Familial in nature and governmental in structure. It is familial in nature, governmental in structure. If you do not understand that, if you turn them around, if you don't have the familial and you only have governmental, you start to miss the most important element of who God is, which is love. You can have a governmental structure with no love. A lot of power, a lot of decreeing, a lot of legislation, a lot of moving things around, but no love. And the Bible says if you do all of that with no love, it means nothing. It means nothing. And so I believe we're coming to a time where we are about to embrace the family nature of the kingdom, the familial nature of the kingdom, so that this governmental stuff we've been learning for the last 10 years is going to have a foundation to sit on.